You've seen the thumbnail, you've seen the title. Final Fantasy VI has usable items? Yeah, apparently, and you can almost beat the whole ass game with them. As usual, nothing that isn't explicitly an item from the item menu, no throwing, no attacking, no using magic, or casting espers. I might use espers for like their passive level up abilities just to secure our bodies a bit, but no using them for damage, and I'm still unsure about whether we're gonna steal. I'm not saying no just because of the radical shift in circumstance midway through the game, but if I can avoid it, I will. Outside of the run, melting in the middle, which we'll get to, the only caveat is that we'll have to beat a few enemies with our regular attacks first, all of which I'd personally consider tutorial bosses, but once we acquire items, we are golden, allegedly. Starting the game, we raid the town of Nash and can flee from a few of these battles, but not all of them, so we commit war crimes and Warcrime a Snail and are broken free from our steel and metal confines. A short jaunt through a cave turns into a micro Moogle wall, which again we'll have to use melee for, and we're halfway to items. Heading south with the greatest treasure hunter, we get macked on by Edgar, then a clown sets our brick castle on fire. Our brick castle on fire. Then we fight the first proper mandatory boss, these two Diglets in mech suits. We rush through the cave, fleeing from every encounter, then head up a mountain and fight our favourite band, Vargas and the Twin Bears, the second real boss fight. Then Sabin comes along, we use Pummel to contextually win, and saving the game on the world map, it's time to get damaging items. I set the UI to a very ugly colour. I'm thinking 27, 26, 22 on every RGB value in all 8 windows. No reason, then I take a few hits and get myself around 1 hit to death and make a save. From here, I'm going to game over 51 times in a row, and this is where the tricky stuff begins. Just before the 52nd, the final game over, I'm going to change the RGB values in the 8th window style to what's on screen now. Dying and holding a sequence of buttons depressed at the exact right moment will give me a yellow Terror, the Bahamut Esper, and put me in the airship. Now, we can go anywhere. And also we've got 8 million gold. If you'd like a detailed breakdown of what kind of demonic black magic I just performed, there's 2 videos in the description. One is by Dr. Swellman, a great JRPG speedrunning channel who goes over the history and implementation of the trick. And Cadmoni for real, who has a great set of videos for the layman on how it works and how to utilize it. Needless to say, this run would be impossible without these videos, and I owe these dudes the world of balance. Genuinely, go watch them. Don't just nod and smile, click the video. I know you got time, bro. You're watching challenge runs on YouTube. Step 1's complete. There's a part 2 to this trick, as simply flying to Thamasa to buy fire rods won't work, as they don't sell to foreigners. How do we know this is a Japanese game? I don't know, educated guess. Anyway, now I'm going to do a slight variation of the same trick, but this one I didn't blatantly steal from another fella. This one I cooked myself. Kinda. I set all the values back to beige and do another 51 game overs. Before the 52nd, I prepare the final 3 values with these numbers, which grant me another Bahamut event where I end up in an airship, thank you again Cadmoni, and the 4th value are these numbers I figured out for myself, using the same guy's hex event script calculator. Look, I'm taking credit for it. Using the value 9B as an invoke shop call and figuring out the number of the World of Balance Thamasa weapon store, then converting its index into hex and then again to the Final Fantasy VI pseudo-scripting language, we get this value here. The first command should give me a shop prompt followed by an event to prevent the game soft locking, and since I know I can just land the airship at the returner base, that's the event I picked. Despite the information and tools being accessible and the implementation being pretty easy, when I got this right and it clicked into place, it was genuinely one of the most satisfying things I've done on this channel. Look at this schizophrenia. Anyway, with 3 max stacks of elemental rod, the game can truly begin. I still want there to be some sort of challenge, so I'll run from most random encounters. I glitched to enable means, not for a free ride. We'll fix the window color too, and also Terra's name got fucked up for some reason. Fingers crossed that causes no issues. Entering the Returner's HQ, Bannon begs us to be his friend, but we neg him until our hand is forced and we're on the raft. This raft is usually a non-issue as Bannon's health ability heals everyone for a decent amount. Barring some incredibly bad luck with Bannon getting crit or a string of damage from him, this part's free. However, we can't use health, so now he's even more dead weight. Thankfully for us, the rods we collected break on use and in exchange cast a level 2 elemental spell, Fire 2, Ice 2, and Bolt 2. While they only do 300 to 600 on regular enemies, on Ultros they clap him in 3 turns. Yeah, I think the first little chunk of the game's going to be real easy, then we're going to drop off a difficulty cliff, particularly as I only have 300 or so total attacks until we can get back to Thamasa, which is pretty far away. Sure, I can do the glitch again, but not only do I not want to for a somewhat balanced run, it also takes about 30 minutes to die 52 times in a row, and that's really boring. Now we arrive at the split narrative. With 3 paths to go, I start with Locke. This is the best one, objectively. In a standard run, Locke will steal from a few blokes masquerading as them and perform various soft sabotage operations around town, and I want to avoid using steal, so I have 2 options. I can walk through this guy at the side and leave Sellers in the basement forever, but I love blonde women so much, so I force everyone to take my rod. Talking to this Magitech armor man, we crack a rod over his bod which deletes him from the map, so taking this hidden bridge here, yeah I know, it's crazy. Who would have thought there was a hidden bridge there? Anyway, we can get the wine for the old man, head back the same way, crack the dude with another rod, and make it to Sellers, having not used steel once. That's clean as. When we recruit Sellers, I wanted to name her Incellers, but we're short a character, and just incels isn't as funny. I wanted a fun pun, not to invite anything non-game related into the comments, so I go with Temcell, which sounds like a battery brand, but you get what I was going for. We make our daring escape and fight tunnel armor, and the usual strat here is to use Runic to absorb the big hitting attacks, and keep in mind we're still underleveled, so I'm a bit worried. However, he dies to 2 rods. Cool. One note I've made about targeting enemies with rods is that they default to hitting everyone, but if you target yourself and then return the pointer to your enemy, it only selects 1 target. I discovered this while being pincer attacked, and it may be handy for future encounters. We'll have to test it further in Terra's story. We battle a few foes and run through the caves, absolutely no issue, and no bosses to worry about. I do the test with the targets, it turns out it works the same as regular spells, it just defaults to selecting all. You can switch to single or all whenever you wish, no trickery required. Starting Sabin's story, we grab Shadow and head to the Empire's encampment, where we best Kefka a few times and pocket mostly random mobs who die in 1 hit. Even while donning the Magitech armor, we can still use items, so it's all good. Grabbing Cyan, we're thrust through the Phantom Forest. Arriving in the train, I recruit a ghost, and the game does this freaky effect that looks like it's from an indie horror game. I knew I went too hard with the glitches. Oh well, I guess we're not recruiting ghosts this run. Returning, I try again to see if I can replicate the issue, and no luck. To be fair, I didn't do the exact same route, but I'm just glad I've got my ghost buddy. Now let's ditch him and kill the train. He remains unsuplexed in this run, which is blasphemous. I apologize to the suplexing community. We blow about 10 rods fishing, a couple to force Gao to leave us alone as we haven't bought meat yet, and he doesn't leave unless you attack him. Then we hold our breath through the Serpent Trench, and I'm down to about 70 of each rod. Everyone arrives at Nash, I put the 4 people I want to use in my party and rush Kefka to a mass experience on dudes I'm actually gonna use. Terra, Cyan, and Gao stay back, and a few rods later we beat this man, and now we're gonna do some fine-tuning of our party. The easy stuff's over, it's time to start optimizing. For this playthrough, everyone has been perpetually back road, and I think that will remain for the entirety of the run, which works well, as I'm going to gear equipment to maximize my speed and magic, foregoing defense and other traditional stats. I put a Genji glove on Locke, giving him 2 daggers which increase speed and dodge. Sellers gets some magic boosting gear, including 2 earrings and also a sword that boosts her dodge, and Edgar and Sabin don't really benefit from anything. Sabin's going to be my sprint shoes guy. With our still sub-level 10 party in a vague state of arrangement, it's time to track down Terra. After a brief stock up to increase our speed in the various surrounding towns, I head to Zozo and discover something interesting. Magic affects item damage. A bolt rod with Sabin deals about 360, and then you use the same item on the same enemies with Sellers and it does just shy of 800. Sabine has 28 magic, while Sellers has 46 plus 2 earrings, so let's keep that in the back of our minds. We may need to factor it in later. Rushing through, we fight Dada Luma, who dies in a few rods. Surprise, surprise. Collecting the Magicite, we've opened the game up, not to learning magic and casting spells and shit like some gay wizard, no, to stat increases. Kate Sith, Ketchi, or however the fuck you pronounce it, gives Sellers +1 to magic on every level up, which is going to skyrocket our damage, probably. I also swap out Ed Guy for Gao, because he's got 6 more magic points. Speaking to Opera Man, we head south to fool a gambling dude into giving us his airship, even though we've already had it twice. Arriving in the Opera House, I get some strange behavior, which is the beginning of how the run died. It completely melted. The Impresario greets us by saying we have 2 chances left, and Ultros is at the door. As Locke gets up to meet Sellers in the dressing room, no one's there, and we can't leave. I knew those glitches would come back to bite me in the ass. Seeing as I'm a YouTuber, I'm going to do what all great YouTubers do when they make mistakes. Double down until it works. Unfortunately, we'll be skipping the opera today, but we've got other plans, like doing the airship glitch again and heading straight to the Magitech research facility. I do the glitch and things start going very, very wrong. I end up in the facility, but not at all how I wanted to, and then I glitch into the arena menu from the World of Ruin, and eventually end up surfing on an emergent Figaro castle, where upon hitting a battle, everything resets. I've done something to this game, and I don't know if it's ever going to be the same. Testing it again, it works just fine for some reason. I must have timed some inputs wrong. So we fly to the southern continent and enter Sen, which sells running shoes, giving us auto haste and earrings. So I buy heaps and head south to the capital. The facility is fleeced, and we make our way past a clown throwing Pokemon down a conveyor belt, only to engage them in battle. Ifrit's up first, and he takes 2 ice rods and the battle ends. Sick. Pushing forth to the next boss, Experiment 626, we start off with the fire rods and then spam him and he dies before he can switch elements. Acquiring some more Magicite, we get on the roller coaster and a bunch of force encounters all die to 1 hit. The boss is a bit trickier and hits decently hard, but being well equipped and in the back row, we defeat him with only a few rods and some minor scuffs. The next boss, 2 UFO arms, have elemental resistances, but also take 2 rods each. We nearly lost Locke and Setzer, likely due to the fact that we're level 11, but we scrape on by. Terra resolves her mental torment, we watch Esper sex, then we get our airship. I'm worried about the state of the game, so I land in an attempt to drop a save, and our airship disappears. Well, I guess I was right to be worried. It looks like we're doing the glitch again. This run is so scuffed. If I have to die 51 times every time I want to take to the sky, this is going to be a long playthrough. After a solid chunk of time, the airship glitch is failing me. I don't know if I went too hard, or something about my party config, or where I am game-wise is messing it up. Either way, we can't rely on it, and my last save would have been at the end of the research facility, but I saved over it, so now we've got to rerun the whole thing. My current goal is to clock it again, stay inside the airship, land on the southern continent, as after the next story events we lose the airship for a bit anyway, so I might be able to skirt around what is currently happening. If I can get to the floating island, the World of Ruin might reset all the flags and the airship might be permanent. This is a total cope, but I'm banking on it. I quickly discover that this doesn't work, as I have to speak with Bannon in Nash first, so I go do that, and I check the stores, and I find that Nash sells poison rods, which, cast poison when used. Very nice. The only option available is the airship trick, which I do, and quite successfully this time I might add, which gives me access to the Cave of Espers, or whatever it's called. I run through and rod everything to death. I die a couple times, but I loot the cave and gain a few much needed levels. I was brutally reminded of my level 10 status as the ninja basically one-shot me. We fight Kefka at the top using 1 poison rod, takes care of the clown, and Terra unleashes a Holocaust, or Holocaust light on the world. The story shoves us back on the airship, but the Espers knock it to the ground. It's out of commission, but once we leave, we can... Oh, it disappeared again. Oh no. It's supposed to be on the map, but it's not. It's not. This glitch runs deep. Heading to the Empire, we talk peace and go through a tough job interview where they ask why manholes are round, after which we're given a bunch of gifts and a new assignment. It's time to go to Thamasa, the home of the rod, and we're also going to track down the Espers or something. I wasn't listening. We're given a free ride on a boat with our boy Shadow, or whatever I called him, I don't remember, and the second we arrive, we hit that weapon shop. I'm not what I'd call super liquid. I don't really have the cash to stock up again, but I scrounge what I can to buy as many fire rods as possible because they're handy and still incredibly overpowered. I also grab some ice rods. We gotta keep cool in this burning house. The regular bombs go down in 1 hit, and the boss takes a few and nearly claps us. It's fine. Shadow saves us because he's super cool and totally not guilty of any terrible crimes. Imagine if Shadow had left earlier. We would have been burnt to death. JRPGs, man. Strago guides us through the mountains. Ultros appears again with a contextual out for this fight in the sketch command, but if you keep hammering him with your rod, he'll die like everyone else. Then we have the notorious General Leo segment, and most people use shock or attack Kefka here, but I'm more of a fishing kind of guy. 4 rods and Kefka the bait, and then things happen and we're back at the world map with no airship. I tried everything. I tried glitching, I tried snitching, I tried not glitching, I tried teleporting maps, hitting it, turning it off and back on. I put it in the microwave, coated in butter, nothing works. If I were better at using and understanding glitches, and what the fuck I've done to this game, this run would have been clean, but I'm not bound to wearing rainbow knee socks, so unfortunately the run is dead. Here's what I'm gonna do though. I'm enjoying this run way too much, and it's already so scuffed. So I'm gonna run back through on a legit save, just so I can use the airship up to Thamasa, where I can legally and responsibly buy rods, and then we'll stitch them together, and we'll pretend it's legit. We good? Good. The first point you can legitimately get damaging items, if we're including Shadow's Throw, is at Jidor, just before Zozo. So that's how we'll move back through this area, just as a show of good faith. I'm not gonna use Throw after this, I promise. I was considering cutting back to when I get to Thamasa, but I found some other cool interactions I want to briefly show off. Shadow at level 10 with no magic enhancements rocks a decent 250 damage, but with an earring in each accessory slot which increases magic power, it's bumped to 350 to all enemies. A single enemy takes a killer 700, which is mental. Beating Dataluma is going to be easy, even at our low level. The trouble is going to be making it there without getting fuckled upon, as we have bugger all healing and little money. That's a joke from another dude, but you haven't seen my dick. He's pretty easy, taking 700 to 800 damage per turn, his 4500 odd health drops quite fast, and we get a successful steal off. Oh yeah, I'm using steal now because I need money and I don't want to attack enemies to farm money. Unfortunately, Shadow leaves the party and not only takes his utility, but also our 2 earrings, so thanks, cool. We make enough money to stock up on healing, but there are no damaging options, so we'll continue on to the Magitech research facility, wherein we'll find one that isn't strictly viable, but where the run could become official, in theory, almost halfway through the game. Look, are you here for fucking stupid challenge run or the sick information about items you've never considered viable? You must pick one. Before heading in, I do a bit of steel grinding on the southern continent as we have access to the airship, which gives us free heals and doesn't disappear, and these enemies have some great rare steals. Jokers can drop green berets, Ralphs can drop tiger masks, and Wyverns can drop dragon boots, all which sell for a couple thousand gil each. I'm pretty underleveled, so I don't do this too much, and we fast forward to the Ifrit and Shiva boss room. It's here that we find Flan, who have a rare steel we're after, Magicite. This is an item which summons a random Esper, and when used from the menu, I was thinking I'd be a big hot shit boy and grab a few, then simply roll up a Bahamut to beat the next 3 bosses, but after about 30 to 40 runs, I only cast like 4 dudes who did damage, and Ifrit was immune to them all. I could keep rolling until I got a Bahamut, but consider the following bosses. David Bowie, who absorbs all the elements, but a rotating one that's undefined, and then the big purple muscle guy with the little dudes who have different elemental resistances. No less the following boss, who I completely forgot about, the 2 crane arms who absorb fire and lightning and power up from each respectively. That RNG isn't something I'm going to screw with, given that the run is already dead, because right after this is where we get our first non-RNG damaging items, and where this particular run truly begins 20 minutes in. We get access to our poison rods in Nash, which means it's game on. Terra's kitted to the gills with magic boost equipment, swords, hats, earrings, we're ready to pop off, even if the next boss isn't for a long time. Before we head to the sealed cave, let's steal some Atlas armlets from these giants in Zozo, some Gaia gears from these buff dogs in Thamasa, because I have literally no other way to make money, and we'll keep around 20 poison rods to be safe. Moving into the cave itself, you can actually steal poison rods here, as they're the rare drop from the Lich enemy. My entire run through, I didn't get a single one, so I'll stick with the current stealing-selling strat and just buy them, it'll save a ton of time. With 19 rods, we hit Kefka with 1 and move the story on to the Vector Banquet, where we clap 5 or so soldiers with rods, and then 3 more during dinner, and we've used about 10. Luckily, we're on to Thamasa next, and we can loot the storehouse just outside the Esper Cave for about 60,000 gil worth of junk, which is about 20 rods. Arriving in the Mage Town, I strip Shadow, get my earrings back, and I've never thought about why you're giving Shadow here. You only get him for the walk to Thamasa, and then he leaves. I guess the new enemies might have ruined you on the way, so they give you some backup? That's a really weird addition. Anyway, we get to the store and start snapping up deals, about 10 of each rod, give or take. Watch out! They're burning down the house. Everyone's geared up. Terra's got 2 earrings and we rush through. You can run from the regular foes in here, which we mostly do, though there are a few groups of 6 bombs which I cap with ice rods. They only yield 1800 gil when ice rods cost 3000 each, but at 700 experience they get me a level or 2. 2 chests in here, one a fire rod, the other an ice rod, and then we cap the boss. He takes 3 ice rods, dealing around 2500 damage when he's got 4 mates and almost 6000 when he's alone, but he was immune to poison, which I think is a pretty common thing. But then Shadow leaves, and we use that money we made to buy a couple more of each rod. I think we've got enough to beat Ultros and Kefka as Leo, so we should be okay until the floating continent, where I'm gonna need to grind a bigly. Ultros takes a handful, as does Kefka, with ulti taking 5,000 a pop from Terra, and Kefka taking like 1,500 from Leo. We cruise on. And there it is, the airship, a sight for sore eyes. Now, let's resume our run. I try to push the IAF, but get fucked. I need more items, so I'm gonna go grind Gaia gears. Okay, so I got around 10 of each staff. It's time to go to the floating continent. Every battle has 2 or 3 IAF units, and they're all pincer battles, which means at least 2 rods per battle. And with about 5 or 6 of them before the boss, once we clap Ultros with 3, we're running a little dry. I quickly fleece the floating continent, get destroyed a few times, gain a level or 2, and return to the ground. While doing this, I stumbled upon a grind strat that will fund itself. If I fight behemoths and get the steal off, as his common drop is running shoes, I'll make 3500 gil from the sale, 2000 experience for my characters, and should only cost me 1 ice rod as that's his weakness. Entering the world of Ruin, I won't have access to Locke for a long time, unless I do a madman suicide run, so I'll have to get stocked up enough to get the airship at the very least. I'm thinking 20 or so of each rod at the start of the World of Ruin, so maybe like 30 of each just to be safe. That's going to be 180,000 gil in total, or 90 Gaia gears to steal. Better get a move on, they're not going to steal themselves. With around 80 stolen, I collect my 30 rods with the cash on hand and other scraps in my inventory and head on up to fight Atma Weapon. He takes about 3,700 from Terra and 2,500 from Realm, which is about 8 rods to fell him, which is far more than I expected to use, so I might need to do some more grinding, possibly a tiny bit of leveling too. I gained a few levels on the floating continent before a group of teens ambushed me and destroyed me with their skeins, and I was pretty mad, but then I realized that those teens would have been happier that I was dead than I was to be alive, so the total happiness in the world increased. Game overing has a useful function in that it pushes you back to your last save with everything else intact, but you keep your levels for some reason. I guess this is to prevent people soft-locking themselves stat-wise and being able to perpetually grind through some of the more restrictive sections, but for this run, it worked particularly well. From what I've read, you don't keep Esper stats, which are bonuses granted by your equipped Esper at the time of leveling, but that doesn't matter too much for this run. Money and inventory are far more important, and they fully reset upon death with our levels intact. Unfortunately, I lost all the shit I stole on the island, but I probably ended up with more rods in total as I was stacked going in. This bodes well for the future of grinding in an absolute pinch. If I need to edge out a few more stats and can't fund it, I can just suicide bait until we get what I want, like all lovable online personalities. Rocking up, we start blasting this dude, and he never stood a chance. We steal his elixir and win. Kefka admits his love for Celes, kills an Emperor, Shadow edges us to safety, and the world completely falls apart. There are a few encounters after these scenes, but they fall in one rod. Unfortunately, you can't flee, but I only fought a handful. Anyway, the world gets destroyed bigly, and Celes has a little nap for a year or so, and doesn't die to malnutrition. Sid must have been force-feeding her something easy to swallow and high in calorie. Let's return the favor. We save Sid by feeding him really fast fish, and then we get rafted to a place with a store, and there's nothing to note here, so we'll go recruit our first friend, Sabin. Rushing through the crumbling house, we're not given much trouble and acquire a couple decent items for selling, as well as a usable magicite. Celes can still one-shot most groups of enemies, but their GP yield isn't fantastic, and I still don't have access to a store, so I'm playing it conservatively. Grabbing Sabin, we book it to find Jarad, the worst actor in the game, maybe even worse than Celes, and following him into a cave we get confused and fire rod ourselves to death. There are groups of enemies here who yield a decent whack of experience and GP, so I clap them when I can. It may be short-sighted, but given that I just one-shot myself, I clearly need the stats. Luckily for us, I can achieve this without blowing down the snout of my rods. I hit the jackpot with a bloke called Dante. Yeah, me and Capcom both. This dude only appears by himself and happens to be undead, so using a Phoenix Down on him, he just dies. Phoenix Downs cost 500 gold and he yields around 700, plus has a decent chance of dropping a gold shield which sells for 1,250. I know the chance is relatively high because I got 2 back-to-back after killing him 5 times. So statistically, it's at least 40%. Wait, is that how that works? I don't know, fucking... So let's say he drops 1 gold shield per 10 kills. As a generous estimate, we're working with an assumed profit of like 350 gold per kill, which is pretty good. A little slow for the price of most items, but a net benefit to our coffers. The fight beneath the castle takes a few tries due to elemental resistances and bad luck, but these rods are legitimately carrying my ass through this game. And getting felt up by the tentacles in the basement has always been a bit of a casual filter. But then we move our castle to the next area and find Setzer, who guides us through a tomb of the undead, which is great as I just stocked up on Phoenix Downs, which most things die to instantly. They don't give as much experience or gold as Dante, but if you compare everything to Dante, you're gonna need more power. Unfortunately, the Phoenix Downs don't work on the bosses, but they die quickly to rods. I even killed the Welk in 2, as I'd like to sell the claws he drops. Though Dullahan, the proper boss, has a lot of health, a solid 5 rods take him. The fight was close, we had a few deaths, and his spells were strong, but we've got rods. I actually had a backup strat where I give everyone wall rings and reflect the rod off of us for theoretically enhanced damage, but then he also would have bounced ice magic off us, which I think he absorbs. Either way, we didn't need it, as he falls and gives us the World of Ruin airship. Traveling the world, I encounter Death Gaze and get clapped pretty hard. I hit him for the damage cap with a stray Pearl Rod I found, which casts Pearl, or Holy, but his arrow attack does well over 1,000 damage. Heading to the Colosseum, I found a... is it Karina gown, or is it a Zarina gown? Either way, I found that in Daryl's tomb, which I'll wager. You might be wondering how I can justify this when characters auto-battle randomly from their arsenal of techniques, and that'd be against the rules, even if I'm not selecting it as I am facilitating it. It'd be like berserking a physical beefcake and then being like, there was nothing I could do, I did everything right. Yeah, but you still set it up. Well, to answer that question, we slap a wall ring on a dude. Any dude will do, and then we start the fight. Holding the flee buttons, we'll never flee and we'll also never attack. The enemy I'm up against is weak to death and cast death, which bounces off me and sticks to him, and that is how you get the best armor for Terra and Celes, the Minerva. This absorbs half the elements, halves the other half, and gives me a solid boost to defense and stats. I lose 1 point of magic, but consider what else I gain. In the spirit of stacking the deck, I head to South Figaro, and with Edgar in the lead, grab an enhancer for Celes, increasing her magic by 5 points, as well as grabbing a diamond shield for an extra couple points of defense. Some mystery veils from Thamasa, which don't drop my magic too far and then puts my magic block at 50%, and if that works how I think it does, that's kinda epic, gamers. It does me well enough to bolt through Nash, grab Mog, as well as a few other trinkets around the place, including a fire rod dropped from a wizard. I've only got 5 characters at the moment, but I want 8, not to fight anyone or whatever, just to ensure survival during the Phoenix Cave. I'll flee from everything and there's no boss, but getting through is going to be rough, so the more HP I can muster, the better. Next up, we'll free Terra from her own torment. We do a fake out fight with, is that Funbaba? Funbaba? Whatever, he's boxed, man, he's absolutely juiced. Look at that steroid stomach. About 15 rods later, we're pushing single digits on the fire and ice variety, but we get Terra. I forgot how many times you had to fight Steroid Shrek, so let's go grab Cyan and Gao, who will fill our rosters to 8, allowing us to get Locke back. Gao's easy, you head to the Veldt with 3 party members and dispatch 1 group of enemies, and then he just appears and enters your party. Sick, now let's head to Miranda, where a thirsty samurai's tale is told. We track him down, grabbing some new shields on our way for Celes, Terra, and Sabin. We grab Cryan, and now it's time to save Locke. I do one run and get defaced by a battle that I cannot flee from, and on my way back, get attacked by death guys. I'm sick of this, guys, so I blast him down with Pearl and Fire Rods, which do insane damage. Getting the Bahamut Magicite, I slip it on Sabin, and every level this increases your HP by, I think, 50% of the gain that you get, which is crazy. He's going to be a mega tank. Then we go back to the Phoenix Cave, because the rods, like, if you thought my rods were empty before, they are really empty now. A few more failed attempts, and I'm getting pretty fed up. It's looking bleak, like a short grind may be necessary, until I realize that I can avoid all random encounters with the Moogle Charm. Slapping Mog in my second party, we skirt the cave effortlessly and recruit my treasure hunter BF. My party now consists of Locke, Mog, Terra, and Celes. Mog for the encounter removal, Locke for resource gathering, and the girls are my blasters. I take Locke back to the Nash caves and start stealing from wizards. Their common steel is a thunder rod, their rare is an ice rod, and they can drop fire rods, so we're in a pretty good spot and self-sustaining again without grinding too hard. The steal rate seems to be almost 100%. After about 30 battles, I've only failed 1 steal, and wizards appear in groups of up to 3, generally 2, so each battle is bountiful. I finish up here and head to collect Realm, as I'll need 12 dudes for the final push. I stop at the auction house and collect Zone Seeker for an extra +1 to magic per level, then speed through the following dungeon, completely forgetting to remove my Moogle Charm. Removing it, slowly, sensually, I encounter some crushers who I can steal Super Bowls from. These deal a random amount of damage multiplied by 256. I'm not going to pretend I understand, but the few times I used them they did 3000 and 4000, and it seems to be non-elemental. Fighting the boss of this area, is it Chidanuk? Let's say it's Chidanuk. We clap him in 3 fire rods as they do the damage cap. Both of my girls are stacked for magic and have at least 1 earring, so there's little issue. We collect Realm, wake up Strago, and head to the Veldt Cave to claim Shadow as well. Stealing from toe cutters in this cave, we grab a few poison rods, which are probably useless, but you never know, it's another renewable resource. There's nothing else of note here, so we rush the bosses, waste a few rods figuring out their elemental weaknesses, and leave Shadow as a sleepy boy. For now, I have 2 characters remaining, Umaro, who I can't use, and Gogo, who I hopefully can. Heading to Nash, I grab the Ragnarok sword and put it on Terra. Since I can't use the Magicite to summon, I can only turn monsters into items if I roll a lucky Magicite item and summon Ragnarok that way. Which, it's not happening. Before that, however, I grabbed the cursed shield from the sleepy bloke, and then I kill the ice dragon pretty easy, but to hit up our boy Umaro, we're gonna get past, is it Tritok or Tritok? And I'm nearly out of fire rods, which is the only thing I have that can damage him. Now, fire rods do damage cap him, but we're gonna need a few more. After a severe beating, I reload, grab a few extras, Tritok goes down in 4, and Umaro goes down in 2. There's another Minerva in this chest which is going to go on Terra, but it's behind 3 Tonberries that almost clap us, and they take 6 Thunder Rods. So look, now we're pretty stacked. All that's left is Go-Go, Doma Castle, Ebbett's Rock, Fanatic's Tower, and then Kefka's Tower, and, you know, probably a massive insane grind. Oh, there's also the Ancient Castle under Figaro, which I always forget, and of course I'll be cleaning up the dragons along the way, because why not? If I didn't need more experience, I'd probably just rush Kefka, as the gear has limited use for my guys and I can't use the magic command, so gathering the gem box at the top of the tower is pointless. I'll genuinely be doing most of the late game content just to sell shit for more pearl rods and super balls. Speaking of, while I'm grinding for rods, I realize that I'm rapidly approaching level 40 and no one's had any speed increases, so I quickly grab Odin and nearly die to both the Katana Soul and the Master Tonberry, but end up with a way to boost my speed permanently, and also, I kill the blue dragon too. This leaves 4 dragons, because I've killed the one at the Opera House and forgot to mention it, so 4 remaining. With 100,000 GP, I can finally pay that dude under the Fanatic's Tower for his hint. just kidding, that's like 8 pearl rods. I grab Go-Go and I head to the Colosseum, as I thought I could make him use items somehow, but you can't use items at all in the Colosseum. I don't know why I thought that would work. I've clearly never used Go-Go in any capacity before. Well, there goes a lot of useful relics and gear and shadow. Oh, well, I'm going to skip Ebbett's Rock because it's annoying, and I'm also not too keen on Doma Castle. So let's head back to the Phoenix Cave to bop that dragon, and then I'll go to the Fanatic's Tower and kill that guy, and then we'll face Kefka, I guess. Before that though, we grind peepers on the isolated starting island, as their rare drop is elixirs and they literally kill themselves. They have 1 HP and the sap status. In the time it took me to get 34 elixirs, I cleansed the cursed shield, so that's also a boon. Oh, Mog's got a death counter and it's ticking down in the battle end screen. Will he die? Let's find out! No, he didn't die. Alright, that wasn't that much of a grind. Let's hit up Kefka's Tower. I rush in, I put my core party in group 2 and dispatch Atma, as well as another dragon. They both drop almost instantly to Thunder and Fire Rods respectively, and we're still almost damage capping them. My first party has Mog with the Moogle Charm, and my third party is some leftovers who nearly get clapped exploring and hit in a battle they were unable to flee from, but enough Super Balls and Ice Rods barely saw them victorious. With this, I head back to the world, dump anything worth half a dam in my inventory, stock up on warp stones and smoke bombs, grab a couple more pearl rods, and then I head to the Colosseum. I wager Shadow's Blade, and for some reason he loads into the battle poisoned, so all I do is flee to prevent any action on Mog's behalf, and Shadow dies and then joins the party. I'm still not going to use him, but it's nice to have everyone together. Heading back to Kefka's Tower with my core party in the third party slot, I fight this guy who has a few elemental resistances, but not enough to stop a pounding from my rod. Then I destroy the final dragon and grab Crusader, which is completely useless for this run, and honestly in general, he comes way too late, not a problem Ramu has ever had. The next boss is Guardian, who I can maneuver my core party to fight, as well as Demon, who both die pretty easily to rods. We damage cap Guardian and are sitting around the high 8000s on Demon. I have to leave twice more to kill Goddess and Doom, the final 2 statues and penultimate bosses of the game, which sucks as getting the weak groups back here is such a gamble, but I had a cheeky attempt at Doom with these guys and it went about as well as you'd expect. Goddess and Doom both fall quite easily with minimal issue, which means we're on to the final encounter. Before we clean up though, let's take a look back at what we've achieved. We've effortlessly killed everything with rods. Cool. I push the Jester and my first attempt goes extremely well, almost too well. I learn some valuable information and get so close to clocking in my first try, but ultimately fall to an Ultima. His first 2 forms are easy, we hit just as hard and fast as we can and they drop. His third form has a woman at the back and a dude at the front. The dude takes the same approach as the other guys, but the lady absorbs all magic, so you're like, how are you gonna get through this? Well, my friend, when you've got super balls, anything is possible. Super Balls hit random targets and do random damage, but her health value is low enough that we somehow clear through it easily. Then comes the big boy, and I lost a few characters prior to some instant death abilities, and they get replaced with shittier dudes, and then we're clapped with the aforementioned Ultima. Damn, that was close. The second attempt completely stalled at the healer chick as she keeps healing with Pearlwind, and my Super Balls are failing to clap her until we run out as I only bought 15. Round 3. During the second part with the 4 blokes, I spam all my shields. I have one type of each. I've got a Fire, Ice, and a Thunder shield, and using these in battles casts the 3rd tier spell variants, which clack through them much faster. We get another bad run after this, but the time after that, we expend all of our Super Balls, and on the very last cast, the healer dies. Unfortunately, this prompts the guy at the front to spam Meteor, so I have to very quickly damage rush him with Terra and sacrifice the rest of my party. With a Terra, a weak Strago, a Sabin, and a half-decent Mog, we face the final boss. It was at this point where I was like, I'm gonna have to reload, there's no way. However, he didn't cast Ultima, and he targeted every non-Terra, so I just rod spammed and he eventually died. It was pretty dire, like, there was only Terra left, and barely, but Kefka's down. Well, that run was, extremely scuffed, and, you know, with some better glitching, you might be able to stitch it together better than I did, but we learned that rods are overpowered due to the sheer weight of magic in this game. And then I guess, because shields do the next tier up even more so, but they're much harder to come across. So, is it possible? Theoretically, if you can glitch better than me, and after the first 4 bosses, I would say absolutely yes, it is doable. In a vanilla run, I guess it's doable to a further extent, or without glitches if you count throw and tools, but despite how scuffed it turned out, I feel like I know this game better now, and you know, we found some cool shit along the way, which I think is the point of these videos. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time for hopefully a better attempt.